is to rescue Sophia, and release Sophia from imprisonment by Ahriman. And so in a sense, the wisdom of the Holy Trinity is returned. In a sense, the wisdom of the Holy Trinity is lost through this Ahrimanic intervention. But then it's reclaimed. So,
do Ahriman and Lucifer work together? Or?
In our lives, they do. Right? What is addiction? Addiction is Ahriman and Lucifer saying, together we'll get more done. So, here's what Lucifer says. Lucifer says, you have this passion, and this passion can feed you, but the passion won't feed you. And so Lucifer gives you a false passion, that you want to, seek, whatever that passion may be. But it doesn't quite satisfy you. You can't quite achieve what you want to achieve with that passion, And then Ahriman comes and says, well, I got 3 ways I can help you with that. Technology, drugs, or whatever technology may be, television, or, you can join an institution and try to get that passion solved that way. Or here's a whole set of ideals that might work for you. So they basically try to feed your passion. Ahriman feeds your passion with the material reality. And that's what addiction is. When you start consuming the material reality in response to the passion that Lucifer has inspired, and you become addicted because the passion cannot be satisfied. And you have this cycle of addiction, between Lucifer and Ahriman, that allows you to really be held in a pretty intense bondage, And you really got to let go of the false passion, the false wisdom, or you have to find some way to overcome feeding that with, technology, institutions, or ideals, those elements of materialism that we give ourselves over to try to help us with what is a fault of the way we think or feel, which is the false passion. You can recognize Lucifer in the world whenever you put ISM on the end of a word. Put ISM on the end of a word, and Lucifer is there. Sexism, patriotism, chauvinism, all of that is Luciferic. And that's how Lucifer works. Lucifer works, used to be in a struggle with Michael, back during the Foxo era. Lucifer was building nations and setting nations against one another. And Michael was coming and trying to resolve those conflicts, And now Michael actually is ascended to the level of archive to take on Ahriman, God's hitman, So now he's an archive, and now he's taking on the work of Ahriman in the world of materialism. Lucifer actually is redeemable. That's a real possibility because Lucifer is a creation of God and can be redeemed, can be brought back into the intention of God. Ahriman is not a redeemable entity. As long as creation is there, Ahriman continues to exist. But we ourselves can overcome the influence of Ahriman. But Ahriman is not redeemable.
Will Ahriman change in time? I mean, will there be a defeat, a lessening, a weakening?
Well, but that all depends. It's not an absolute state. It depends on us, our state, not the influence of Ahriman in the world. Can you say, is there going to be a general strengthening of all human beings at some point in the future? I don't know. I'm not much of a. My own theology and spirituality doesn't involve a time in the future when there's paradise on earth again. It's just my personal theology. Obviously, Jehovah's Witnesses tell a different one. Obviously, some people believe we all die and go to heaven. Other people believe paradise will arise again here on the earth. That's everybody's personal theology. It doesn't work for me,
Is Ahriman tied to this earth?
Ahriman's tied to the universe, the creation.
So it's the reversal of the Big Bang. The collapsing of the universe actually happens.
Right.
Is that the only resolution?
Well, it doesn't have to be resolved in a way. This is sort of, in a way, you got to remember now, This has to do with these different levels of existence. This is resolve for any human being who achieves the state of resolve with God. Then Ahriman doesn't exist in the world in that way anymore. Ahriman exists in that way in the world on this level, and may exist in that way for eternity, as far as I know. I don't really know. But I know that there's a certain spiritual state where it's not the situation anymore. I'm not in a world where Ahriman has any influence over my life at all. Ahriman is resolved into the will of God at some point. In Eastern tradition, they talk about Saguna Brahma, Taraka Brahma, and Nirguna Brahma. The state of Nirguna Brahma, God and Ahriman are one. They're resolved. The darkness and the light don't have any distinction in the state of Nirguna Brahma. Nirguna means no gunas. Consciousness becomes made into certain aspects through these gunas, these three qualities. We'll talk about more when we get to pratyahara, because pratyahara is about overcoming the influence of the gunas. But there's a level of nirguna. There's a level of existence which is nirguna, where the gunas do not hold sway anymore, and there's no distinction in that level between God and Ahriman. But in the realm of saguna, which means qualified consciousness, then that's what you have, is the split, the divorce between those. And so the material world. Now, in the Eastern tradition, Ahriman doesn't come across as such a bad guy. It's really property or Shakti. It's really just this other element that has to be there for creation. And it's not such a negative thing as it is out of the Persian, and the Western sort of view. But the theology, either theology works. There may be a certain qualitative difference, but I don't think it's necessary to use the Eastern approach to these logos. I think Ahriman and Lucifer work. It's the choice of Steiner, his perception that this paradigm, works for our time. I tend to think that it's probably true that the paradigm of the East, where you have Shakti and Shiva as the entities that are divorced in creation, and they don't have they have more, and it's the union of those. They're more looked at as male and female, not light and darkness. And these male and female aspects have a role in the world that they play dynamically. And at a certain point, they come back into union. It's the whole idea of Rasna Kundalini. It's to bring the two back into union. But in the West, you have light and dark as an image of, so it's so.
So when a human being achieve, like Seven said, that if human beings develop more and achieve to no moral level of things, then what does this one and then Ahriman going to animal
right. Well, that's very complicated. If you want, and in theosophy, it's complicated. If you want to, theosophy is a complicated explanation of all these different epochs, and they're epochs beyond our epoch, in which Lucifer we're living in a different kind of way, and Ahriman and Lucifer are existing in a different kind of way. But that's I don't think that's really relevant for the practice of yoga, though. But if you want to explore it more, there are definitely books in theosophy that help you explore that. So let me kind of wrap up here and see if there's any questions. So what we're doing here is we are trying to understand what actions and thoughts we have that are in line with spiritual necessity, which means is the ascension of this hierarchy of will, and recognizing that in that we have access to grace. And if by some way we are able, now you got to read the book. In reality, sin has changed its nature from what it was in the time of paradise. In that, as you know, Eve sinned on the realm of desire, not in the realm of motive. It's in the astral body. And in a sense, we're lucky, because that's what makes grace available to us. If there was such a thing, if you can truly sin in the ego, you can truly, like Lucifer and Lucifer mostly, with my ego forces, withdraw from relationship with God, that sort of sin would be evil. Almost no human being is capable of that sort of sin. Aren't truly evil human beings. You people want to break that with some historical figures, but no person does. Even murder, they don't do it because I am perceiving myself as an evil person. They do it usually out of those lower levels because of desire and drive, and that. People are not sinning up here in the level of wish and motive. If you were able to do that as a human being, then you would be an evil human being. But I don't know if that even really is a possibility. Well, I think science says there's a possibility to exist in this age. We're moving into ages where that is a possibility for human beings, that there can be evil human beings, because our I is now available to us, and if we act out of the I in some of these ways, then we would be evil in that sense. But you probably are unlikely to meet any evil people in our lives, that are really have that kind of consciousness. That's a high level of consciousness. To be evil, you got to have some developed consciousness to be able to use your I in that way, that you can actually withdraw your intention from the intention of God to push away grace. You got to be able to have a capacity to have control of all your lower will forces that would normally have you develop, but you have to say, no, I think I'm not interested in grace. Yes, I have, had this development. I'm fully conscious and clear about the nature of reality here, but I think, just keep it. I'm going shopping somewhere else. That would be evil, and even people who are so-called, quote, satanic cults, they truly are operating, though, from desire and drive. They're not really, they have this paradigm that they're using to meet lower their lower nature. They're not really acting out of that level of consciousness. A bodhisattva could possibly be evil. You know what a bodhisattva is? A bodhisattva is a being who has achieved liberation, who comes back into the world to help others. So if a bodhisattva came back and then decided to switch sides, that would be an evil act. So if a bodhisattva achieves liberation, I'm going back, I'm going to help others, and then he's this is a waste of time. These people don't listen. I'm going to go ahead and hook up with Lucifer and Armand. People listen. When I'm talking out of the mouth of Lucifer and Armand, then that person would have made an evil choice, an entity. So that's all theology. So I guess that's it. Does anyone have any questions? People have a sense of what they're going to do with this when they read today? And I will be doing a little bit more notes about what as I do every week, about what you actually should do with this. But at this point, if there are any questions, I'll address them too.